for our webinar on the traits of a Chief Estimator. Before I hand over to your host, Jim Fearon, once again, everyone has been muted on entry, so please use the chat function to send any questions, and we will endeavour to answer them all at the end of the presentation. And without any further delays, I'll hand over to Jim Fearon.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Caitlin. Thanks for joining us today. Just to introduce myself quickly, as Caitlin said, my name is Jim Fearon. I'm VP for Hays in Western and Central Canada. I've worked for Hays for almost 18 years, the last 5 of which I've spent here in Canada, based out of Calgary. I've spent the vast majority of my career recruiting in technical disciplines, including construction, property, mining and oil and gas, and I've been lucky enough to have worked for Hays in England and Australia before moving to Canada in 2011. This presentation will take about 25 minutes. We've got time for questions at the end, about 10 minutes at the end. So any questions that you do have, just type them into the chat box and they'll come through to me, and I'll do my best to make sure we answer them all as they come through. To help me with the questions, I'll be joined by Russ Carnley and Lisa West. Russ is the Senior Manager of our construction and property business in Vancouver. He's been working in that market since we opened there in 2004 and has more than 15 years experience with Hays, whilst Lisa is the team lead of our business in Ottawa, where she's worked for 5 years. So I've got some people joining me with a lot of experience in this. Okay, so today's presentation is taken from the findings of our most recent addition to the DNA series that we've been producing over the last couple of years, and it's called The DNA of a Chief Estimator. For those of you unfamiliar with it, the reason behind the DNA series was to understand with some certainty what it takes to reach the top of your profession in Canada and to provide a roadmap, if you like, to the leaders of tomorrow, whatever their chosen discipline or industry. And previous editions that we've produced have also covered the development paths of CFOs, CIOs, and VPs of HR and construction, and I'd highly recommend taking a look at those if you haven't seen them before. For this survey, we surveyed more than 100 chief estimators, we interviewed 7 estimating leaders, and we reviewed 80 chief estimator resumes to find out what it takes to become a chief estimator, what skills they have, what traits they say are important. And some of the things that we wanted to know were what qualifications you need, how long it takes to become a manager, why they chose a career in construction estimating in the first place, what their entry into the function was or the profession was, their biggest career challenges, and what advice they'd give to the next generation of estimating leaders. So when I'm giving you these insights today, these are pulled from more than 150 different estimators' career paths, and obviously there's lots of different ways to succeed in this function and lots of ways to reach a leadership level, but we found the common threads that will help you succeed, and we think you should find this information useful. Or if you're already a manager or a senior leader, this could also help you develop your teams by knowing what traits to look for and how to help them identify and address areas for improvement and to help guide them to their career ambitions. So let's start with the most challenging career obstacles. So almost half of our respondents said the leap from intermediate to management was the toughest step in their career. That's about becoming more than a technical expert and being seen as a functional and company leader. So one of the estimators we interviewed, Derek Knopp, said that becoming a chief estimator was a challenge, but he got there by always stepping up to accept new responsibilities. So the question we wanted to answer for you today is, how can you move from a technical or tactical role to one as a strategic leader? So let's take a look at what it takes to succeed as a chief estimator. So we found the 5 skills, or the 5 skills we found in common in all chief estimators we interviewed and surveyed were: you need to develop and maintain advanced technical estimating skills, you need to be good at problem solving, have an extensive people network which will serve you well when you're responsible for business development, and you need people leadership skills. And finally, to be a chief estimator, you need to understand the whole business so you contribute to strategy and drive business results and have a profound understanding how the decisions you make today could have a broad impact on the organisation tomorrow. I'm going to go through these one at a time to look at how you can develop these skills. So as a chief estimator, you still need those core technical skills that you develop in the first 5 or so years of your career. Now, in some industries and some functions, we find that as you progress into a more senior leadership capacity, your core technical expertise can become less and less important to you. But this definitely doesn't appear to be true for estimators. 88% of the estimators we talk to say ongoing professional development is important in their careers, and many have function-specific qualifications. So how can you make sure you stay sharp? Well, firstly, we recommend getting and maintaining your accreditation or qualifications. So 85% of estimators have a diploma or degree, and many have additional accreditations. For example, a third are maintaining their Gold Seal estimating qualification, whether it's LEED, being a PQS, having MRICS. These qualifications hold you accountable for maintaining and improving your functional knowledge and helping you keep up in a changing industry. Secondly, find ways to challenge yourself. So look for stretch assignments internally, ask your manager for experience with new techniques or projects, and if there aren't those opportunities internally, then consider looking for a role in a different organization or a different type of organization. Look for opportunities where you have a smaller project with more responsibility or a larger project with equal responsibility, if that makes sense. If you're the senior estimator doing $10 million projects, could you be the chief or lead estimator on $5 million projects, or the senior estimator on a $50 million project? So either way, it would help you to advance your career and give you exposure to other and different facets. Finally, chief estimators have mastered conceptual estimating, so are able to look at a project and relatively quickly and easily get an accurate guesstimate, if I can put it that way, of cost based on experience. So this ability should naturally develop as you progress through your career, but you can speed that up by comparing initial bid and final cost of previous projects or packages of work to see where the difference may lie and where things went right or wrong, which will inform you for the next project or projects that you're estimating in the future. You also need to know the engineering of the project and should know your construction specs by heart. So how many catch basins go in the parking lot, for example, or how many sprinklers per square foot, etc., and getting a really broad knowledge of that stuff should help you to master conceptual estimating faster. Next, you need strong problem-solving skills. So this is considered the most important skill at the senior management level, and as Sarah Chen says here, she needs critical thinking skills to be able to work around problems that could hold back a project. That could be during pre-construction and spotting possible obstacles before they become problems for the project, or it could be during project execution and making sure the budget stays on track, or knowing where to make adjustments if one part of the build is going over budget or behind time. So how do you develop those skills? Well, firstly, develop a deep understanding of the building process, because the better your overall knowledge is, the better you can anticipate or prevent problems. And if you know what site installation of a project looks like, then you understand better the people side of building costs, and you can prevent or mitigate potential problems. Secondly, I'd say that problem solving can be practiced like anything else, and so practice finding more than one solution to every problem. Don't always accept the first solution that comes along. It isn't always the best. Practicing sort of creativity, if you like, will help you when you come across a complicated solution or situation rather, and help with your problem-solving skills. When a problem does arise, pay attention to how your manager or mentor deals with it, and think about what you could have done differently, what they could have done differently, or why they chose a particular option, and really understand their thought process. You can also learn a lot from other people's vicarious experiences, I guess. So tap into your network, talk to your peers, your managers, or your mentor. Most people will have faced the same or similar problems as you currently do in the past, and you can simply learn from their successes and mistakes. So don't be sort of too proud to go and ask for help and support. And then finally, value engineering is a critical skill for senior estimators and above. You need to be able to anticipate problems, make changes during the build process, and know the construction specs and options, so you know where changes can be made if needed to keep a project on budget and deadline. Right, so next we come to networking, and networking is a very important skill set for estimators, because that network is going to help drive both your career and your company's success. 90% of estimators say networking is very important, and it was emphasized by all our interviewed leaders, especially as you take on more accountability for business development and maintaining workflow for your company. Okay, so how do you go about increasing your network? Well, one of the biggest mistakes people make, especially early in their career, is to focus exclusively on external networks or believing your networks are external, so the people outside your organization. And the reality is that your internal network is just as important, if not more important, depending on what your career goals are, I suppose. So internal networks are important for career progression and developing your general business knowledge. External networks are obviously important for finding new ideas, new opportunities, being able to get competitive prices, obviously, and business development. It's important, very important for you to be curious about other functions, talk to project managers, to site supers, to sub-trades and suppliers, ask lots of questions, really try to understand how what they do relates to what you're doing today in the industry. How does their role impact yours, and how does your role impact theirs? And showing a genuine interest in someone else's role and how you can make their role easier is probably the easiest way to build a very strong relationship with somebody. You need to look at joining an association or industry group. It's a great way to meet your peers and other contacts. There are different advantages to estimating specific groups and to general construction associations, so networking with other estimators will expose you to new ideas and other solutions, and you'll get to see how other firms are solving the same sorts of problems that you're facing on a day-to-day basis. And then comparatively, a general construction group will expose you to the wider industry and help you find new business opportunities and possibly develop a broader understanding of market trends. Finally, your recruiter can have a fairly unique viewpoint of the industry and function that could be useful to you. This isn't as shameless a plug as it may sound, so apologies if it does sound that way. I'm not really talking about when you're looking for work, but because of the volume of people we meet and speak to, we tend to know what other companies are doing, what projects they're winning and losing, and we can be a real network hub for you, connecting you to the right people in your regional sector. And so to speak from personal experience on this point, when I worked for Hayes in Perth in Western Australia, I had relationships with a number of senior and sort of chief estimating clients that used to come to me a lot to try and get market information, largely to help them with their business development efforts. And I regularly introduced them to architects or engineers that I knew were heading up certain projects so that they could try to get on bid lists. And I could also tell them who was winning what projects, and I had a strong understanding of what projects were going well and which were going less well, and they seemed to find that information interesting and valuable. And then on to leadership skills. So people leadership is very important, obviously, both as a functional leader and as a business leader. You can't succeed without a great team, and you can't get a great team without knowing how to lead and motivate them and to help them become successful. So this is the second most important soft skill for a chief estimator, and just after communication. And I'd say that communication is critical to people leadership, so they definitely contribute to each other. And so how do you develop those skills? Well, firstly, I'd recommend you get your manager on side. So they've got lots of tools that they can help you with, whether it's helping you become a mentor, offering stretch assignments with some team leadership or projects they've got going on, or specific internal training that's available within the organization. And the best way to learn these skills is actually to practice leadership skills and then get feedback, and then you can apply that feedback to your next challenge and drive continual improvement, getting the practice and feedback loop. Secondly, there's a lot of information out there about leadership best practices. There's lots of very good books to read, so figure out what your leadership style is, read the top books on people management, and subscribe to various blogs about leadership. The more time and energy you put into this, the better your team will perform and develop, which will drive results for your function and your company and advance your career. And then finally, I highly recommend finding a mentor who can help with the finer points of people management. More than half of chief estimators had a mentor at some point in their career, and 2/3 of them have actually been a mentor. And a mentor can be an important way to learn from someone who's ahead of you on the career path, and they don't necessarily have to be in the estimating function. Having somebody that understands leadership and how to motivate people and how to communicate from any industry and any function could be equally as valuable to you. And then finally, being a chief estimator is about more than just estimating. It's about helping lead and direct your organization to grow and develop. So business understanding and broad business understanding is absolutely critical. And the top 2 skills estimators need, according to the people we surveyed, are strategic planning and business development. The better you understand the whole business, the build process, how suppliers and subcontractors operate, the better you'll be able to improve processes internally, close projects, and keep ahead of changes in the industry, and maybe one step ahead of the competition. So how can you go about building business acumen? Well, firstly, know your organisation and industry, understand the company's biggest challenges and who your competitors are, and if possible, how they work. Read your company press releases and reports, keep up with the quarterly results and so on, and take a real interest in your organisation and what's going on. Use that internal network that you built up at the beginning of your career, or hopefully built up at the beginning of your career, or that you're building to get a bird's eye view of the company. What's the project manager's biggest headache? How does your work align with accounts payable or accounts receivable? You know, that general knowledge will help you make estimating decisions that can have a good outcome for the whole organisation. I'd also say you need to understand what else impacts your company's projects and how that affects your role, team, and technique. So if it rains for 3 months straight, what does that mean for current and future projects? If there's a new technology that has an initial cost but means faster and more accurate estimating, is that something you need to invest in to keep up with the competition, or is it an investment that actually you don't think will pay off? And these are all things that sort of dovetail together, and the better your business, industry, and estimating knowledge, the better placed you'll be to drive results for your company. Finally, I recommend finding a business mentor. That might be a senior estimator, but it could be someone from a different function as well, someone who is more business understanding than you, who can help you connect the dots between estimating and other functions and see how all that activity connects to the overall business results. So what can you do today to drive your career? Well, I wanted to give you some practical takeaways from this presentation. So here are some of the ways you can keep your career moving forward every day. Firstly, reach out to new connections. So that could be internal or external, a supplier, a mentor, or a recruiter. There are lots of relationships that will be useful to you, so create one today. You could also strengthen an existing relationship by reconnecting with someone you haven't spoken to in a while. But generating your network and moving it forward is about getting on the front foot and connecting with people and building a network. If you're not already a member, take a look at local industry groups and associations where you could grow your network, learn about the latest developments, and find new ideas and opportunities, and look for events and opportunities to go and meet people outside of work hours and build relationships with them. Internally, your manager should be your biggest support for professional development, so talk to them about your goals, the areas you want to practice or get experience in, or simply areas for development, and make sure they actually understand what your career objectives are, and then find out how you can stretch your abilities, or they can help you stretch your abilities, practice new skills, or they might be able to match you with a mentor within the organisation or externally that they think could offer you valuable insights. And then finally, invest in your education. So that might be your qualification or accreditation, but it could also be time spent reading trade publications or government reports on the industry overall. There's lots of ways to keep up your skills, and if you aim to do something small regularly every day or every week, then you'll stay on top of it and maintain and increase your knowledge base. Right, so that's just about concludes what we have for you today. If you're interested in estimating as a career path, or you're looking to develop your career further, then I would recommend having a look at the report, the DNA of a Chief Estimator. We cover the common career paths, the skills you need at each stage, and our specific recommendations for both professionals and team leaders or employers. Plus, we've got 7 great interviews with some of the industry's top leaders in the function that have a lot of valuable insight. You can request a copy of the report from that URL there, hayes.ca/resources/DNA-estimator. It's coming out on Monday, so if you request it this week, then we'll send you a copy automatically when it launches. So that's it. So we're open to questions now. That wraps up the information that we wanted to present. As I said, I've got Russ Carnley and Lisa West on the line to help me with any questions that do come through. If you just tap them into your chat box at the top, we'll see what comes through. Okay, we've got one question here. So I'm a chief estimator, and I'm finding it hard to hang on to people once they hit the 2 or 3 year mark. How can I keep junior and intermediate estimators happy and or from job hopping? And I don't know, Russ, Lisa, do either of you want to start on that?
I can make a comment on that, Jim. I think essentially you need to make sure that you're staying on top of setting clear objectives for the development of your staff. Like if people have regular reviews, they're provided feedback, they're empowered to take on more responsibility, then I think young people will tend to stay in their role. Sometimes moving on can just be a function of being bored or not challenged. And another thing to consider as well is just making sure that you are staying on top of what the market should be bearing in terms of salaries. So accessing our salary guide or just making sure that you're paying people what they're worth in the market. Even if essentially it's more than you think people should be getting, you do need to stay on top of those things and make sure that people aren't susceptible to offers from elsewhere.
I'd agree. I think a key element to retention is, in general, communication both ways. I'd say just being aware of what your teams are looking for and are wanting, or even motivated by, in terms of what they're working towards professionally is really important. You know, and then the other part of it is are you communicating the aspirations in terms of potentially you recognizing them as well within the business? I think by doing so, you know, some professional development ideas can come forward in terms of an employee-employer relationship, and the engagement will just continue further in depth into the business.
Thank you, Lisa. I would add to that as well that I'm just answering a question from Nicole Hepburn. Is that what you wanted to have a look at, Nicole? She just asked me to go back one slide. But I would add to that as well that and sorry, this is another marginally shameless plug, but we produced a report a number of years ago called What People Want, and I think that's probably about 3.5 years ago now, and we're actually just about to produce the second version of that. And what we really saw from that was that, particularly with the younger generation coming through, they like variety in the work, and they like to do different things, and if they do the same thing, over and over again, then they do get bored and they start looking for other things. So if you can offer people variety in their jobs, if you can be different types of projects that they're estimating on, different sizes of projects, what have you, and you can generally be teaching them new things on a very regular basis, then I think you keep their attention a lot better and you'll keep them engaged. And it's not necessarily to do with promotions or money, it's about how engaged do they feel and how well are they being developed within their organisation. Are they getting like a variety of experiences? So I'd say if you can view it in that way as well, that would be very valuable to you. So, okay, we've got another question here. To progress my career, am I better to focus on getting a designation, or can I get to senior estimator by working on bigger projects and taking on more team responsibility? So I think we're saying, like, will a designation get me to senior estimator faster than simply getting a more diverse project experience, I guess is the way I'm interpreting that question. Russ, Lisa, do you have an opinion on that?
Sorry, Lisa.
Sorry, pardon me. So I'd say, you know, this is a bit of a tricky one. So to some degree, it holds weight on where your employer's position is on this. I'd argue while employers recognize and can kind of appreciate designations, the majority agree that designations alone cannot replace experience and the practical application of. Most of our employers and the chief estimators who contribute to this report agree having a designation and supporting like educational background is good, but it doesn't necessarily trump being hands-on or having the on-job exposures as well. Opinions would suggest to broaden your scope and exposures as best you can, and then broadening your skill set increases kind of the toolbox of skills and experiences you have, which can add value and kind of increase and progress your career much quicker than just necessarily getting a designation.
Right. Would you say that, so I've got a question for you guys on this myself, though, when your clients ask you for senior estimators, that part of the job spec is they want experience and they want a designation? Like, would they say they're essential things or the right experience and a designation or not?
Very rarely. The only ones who tend to specify about a designation are the ones who have a designation, funnily enough. But I'd say more often than not, it is not something that is requested. One thing I would say, though, and it's separate to designation, but there is normally an assumption of a certain level of education. So if you haven't got a technical diploma or you haven't got a degree related to what you're doing, you will tend to hit some form of a glass ceiling, so that could be a separate thing to consider. We don't see many people get into chief estimator or senior estimator level who don't have at least a degree or a diploma, but that's separate to getting a designation, of course.
Right, I think that's good advice there. Were you going to add something, Lisa?
I agree. I mean, I think the education background can vary really between everyone's backgrounds in terms of what they've studied and what kind of diploma or designation they've gotten. But yes, a lot of them will already have automatically some sort of background in it, and then you see as their career progresses and they go down the route of becoming a chief estimator or a senior estimator, sometimes they'll take complementary courses to kind of just refine that. But again, most times employers are not really adamant about specific designations when it comes to this. They're more focused on just the experience and the practical part of it.
Excellent. Thank you, Lisa. We just had someone point out to us that the link to register for the report doesn't seem to work yet, so that's something for us to look into, so thanks for pointing that out. And we've got one other question. I'm currently working for a consultancy, but would like to move to a general contractor in the next couple of years. What are contractors looking for that I may not have experience now, and how would you suggest I prepare for that change? Russ, do you want to go first on that?
Yeah. So firstly, I should say general contractors tend to place a high value on people coming from a QS or cost consultancy background, so that shouldn't be a problem to make that switch. It depends what you are doing within the consulting world, though. If you are focused purely on mortgage monitoring, it's probably going to be a harder transition for you, but if you are gaining experience within the cost planning realm, then the transition should be relatively easy. So if you're in mortgage monitoring, I'd suggest you try and get some experience in cost planning. And if you're already in cost planning, then obviously you're probably on the right path already. And just one other comment on that, I probably just, even though people do place that experience, place a high value on that experience, I probably just wouldn't leave it too long, because you just don't want to get pigeonholed as being one thing rather than the other, and probably the further you're in to your career, perhaps the harder it's going to be to make that switch successfully.
Yeah, absolutely. It really depends how long and what type of consulting you've been doing. Have you only had your career and only had your years doing consulting in a very kind of niche market or a niche perspective? That will, those limitations will come across if you're trying to make the move, or, in combination with other things, I think it adds value to your professional profile for sure.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. Appreciate that. Sorry, I was just distracted. I've got another question coming through that is quite a long one. Oh, by the way, the link to the on the website has just been updated, but it's going to take a little bit of time to start working. So come back this afternoon, you should be able to request it now. So I'm an estimator waiting for an opening or opportunity with my company for a senior estimator role. They keep hiring senior estimators externally. How can you ask for a promotion? I don't want to leave the company to get a promotion, so how do I show them I'm good for a senior estimator role and they should promote from within? Good question.
Yeah, very good.
Well,
I would say that having a really frank and open conversation with your employers, first things first. I think a couple of questions would come up about, are they aware that that's your ambition? Are they aware of that? And also, you know, on the receiving end of that, that could open up your eyes to maybe their perspective on, you know, how far out you are from that, or things that you can be doing to be tailoring yourself to be working towards what they see as needing to be for their senior estimator. So first things first, I'd say the dialogue needs to be open, and everyone needs to make sure that everyone's on the same page about that. And then the conversation kind of gets tailored down to what it is you need to do as an employee to be in line to be considered for that position, or maybe areas that you're lacking training or whatever the case is that the employer can assist you with to get you up to where you would be considered and moved into that role.
Fair. Russ, you got anything to add?
No, just that essentially I think it would be rare for an employer to hold someone back, especially when it's so hard to find good senior estimators, that your boss probably isn't holding you back for no reason. So as Lisa's mentioned, like well, ask for the feedback, but also be open to it, and probably just make sure that you are being honest with yourself and reflective in terms of what your strengths and weaknesses are, and not just blindly saying I could be doing that job sort of thing, and really take that on board. And if there are things you need to work on, just make sure that you are doing that, because like I say, it's just unlikely that you're being held back for no reason. So
yeah, I'd agree. Like being prepared to be very objective and I guess thick-skinned about any advice or constructive criticism that you might get, but also like you definitely 100% have to table it as an ongoing concern for you and understand why maybe you're not getting the promotion, but then put a plan in place to overcome whatever hurdles there are. And I think going back to some of the points in the report here, it's about working with your boss to improve your skill set and to get their advice and assistance, and maybe to find other opportunities to get the experience that maybe you're lacking. But then to work with them on a regular basis and get regular feedback, so that you understand, are you actually developing the areas that you need to develop or not? So you don't want to spend a year thinking you're working towards something and succeeding, only to find that you're not actually making the headway that you wanted to. So I think it's just about being open, being honest, having some clear communication, and then getting a plan in place and working with your boss on delivering on that plan. So that's how I'd answer that one. The link is apparently now working, so thank you for that piece of feedback. And that's it. That's all the questions we've got. So I'd say thank you very much for dialing in and participating. My personal opinion on the DNA series that we've produced at Hayes as a whole is that it's one of the best piece of market information that we've received. It's directly from people in the roles, directly from people that have spent many years in the industry, and there's nothing better than information coming from the horse's mouth. So whether you want to use it as a leader to either help guide people through their career path, so that you can demonstrate, you can show them how to achieve the things they want to achieve in their career, or as we said earlier, that you want to sort of work out or look for key traits in people that you think will necessarily make them a successful senior estimator and beyond, or if you're at the early stages of your career, and you want to, work out what the critical path is for you, then personally I think they're excellent, and I highly recommend downloading them. All of them have been very, very, very good pieces of work indeed that we're very proud of. So anyway, thank you very much for dialing in this morning or afternoon, wherever you are in Canada, and hopefully you get the report and find it very useful. Thanks. Goodbye, everybody.